everybody to Thursday and the CC Realty Show. We're in episode, I think we're almost at 20, and it is really the beginning of what I'm going to call a long journey. Typically every week what we do is we will interview and bring different people in to start and help, I'm going to say, share intel, share expertise on what's really going on in the real estate market. We use a metaphor sometimes calling peeling the onion back. And there's a lot of people in this industry. This industry has been around. It's the oldest business since the instant of time. And I am excited to be part of it, I guess, is one of the things that I'm going to share. But even more relevantly, and for those that are watching, this is Michelle. I'm with CC Realty. We have a team that we work with. And what do? We help people buy real estate. We help people sell real estate. And then we also help educate people on how they can invest, how they can make or increase their net worth, if you will. Many years ago, I had a dear relative. We're going to call her my grandmother, and she had that ability. It wasn't so much about how long she went to school for. She didn't have a depth in education, but she knew how to make 1 + 1 = 3. And it was just always in her and so on. So I love to be able to help people, love that opportunity. And I wanted to take a moment today, folks, and just speak a little bit about what we are seeing happen in this industry from, it is on fire. And, sometimes we can kind of sit back. Why? Why is it on fire? Why is the real estate market so strong? We are definitely living in an era right now that most of us have never gone through before. And there's a lot of presuming that the market would have slowed down. There's just a lot of, but that's not what's happened. And there is inquiry as to why is this real estate market going so strong? And I can tell you, it is stronger than I've ever seen it. I've been in the industry for a few years, and it is stronger than I've ever seen it, and stronger than I think most people have seen it. But if you love data and you keep looking at the factual-based data and what drives real estate, it is fascinating. So there's a couple people that we have that we align with. We call them our best practice advisors. And there's one gentleman, his name is Mark Purdy, and we've had Mark on the show in past, and we'll have Mark on again. And I love it when people take the time and they educate themselves and they really learn how things work. And Mark is one of those guys. He's been an investor for a number of years. He spends a lot of his time educating realtors. And why? He really wants to help them get equipped with the right information that they could take to their clients. And I learned from him. And it was great. It was amazing when I started to understand pre-construction as an example. If people are interested in new homes, pre-construction, and there's a lot of people that are interested in them from an investing standpoint, he was able to take us through the things that we really should be looking at. And when you look at all of the things that we should be looking at, it's pretty mind-blowing. So as I have always emphasized to people that work with us, real estate is not a transaction. Real estate is a process. And having, I guess, 30 odd years in a former space, it's process. It's all in how we go about doing things. We are representing people. We have a license. This is the most, in Ontario, it's one of the most regulated. And I'm loving every minute of it. It's when you're in the industry and you really start to understand what we're doing, it's a privilege to be in this industry. It's a privilege to work with the people that we work with, and we're all there to help. But when I look at today, I just wanted to take a little bit of time and speak about the investing side, because the moment that you decide I don't want to rent anymore, or you own your own home and you decide maybe we can do that, second investment property, or you may decide, we got 2 properties, how can we get another one? Whatever that may be, every single piece of real estate that you consider purchasing, whether it be because you're a first-time home buyer, you are investing because you're investing in yourself. And as you get going and start understanding, if those that have interest in pursuing and growing their net worth in real estate, same thing. Get your homework done, get your homework done, get your homework done. So follow people. Success leaves clues. Follow the people that you trust. There's tons of information that does exist. And I always say the more that we can educate ourselves, the better we are when we go to make a decision. The interesting thing is I spent a lot of years in a different industry to understand how our brains work and why we do what we do. That's an easier way to describe. And when it comes to why we do what we do, we make decisions based on emotions. Emotion is actually what's going to help us pull the trigger. So when we're out there and we're looking at real estate, if we fall in love with something, for some reason, it's not to say that we're not going to do all the homework, but emotion is what really is. So if we can get the homework done in advance, even better. So this industry, as we're watching it, folks, it is growing. We're seeing it evolve. Lots of people might be thinking, is it going to come down? Is it come up? Real estate is point in time. So what we're really doing is we're interpreting the market. The more data that we have to really get some sound understanding, the better. And that helps. So if we're following the right data, it does really help us understand what's going on. And we focus on a few cities in addition. And we're seeing it strong all the way from Ottawa, Kingston, Belleville, little tiny place called Tweed, if you will, flowing it into Toronto, GTA, Mississauga, Brampton, Halton, which is your town of Oakville, Milton, Burlington, and then Waterdown, which is now we're going into Hamilton, and then we get into Hamilton's about 5 little cities, and then we go into, we get on the other side and we're getting into Stony Creek, and then we get into Grimsby, and then we're getting into Beamsville, and then before you know it, there's St. Catharines, and then there's Niagara. We're seeing it strong across the board. It doesn't always mean, however, that just because it's strong, there's opportunities out there. We're busier now than we ever have been. But if you are, for those that are out there, you're thinking about becoming maybe a first-time home buyer, or you're going to wait because you may want to think the market's going down, or I want to buy an investment property, or I want to grow my investment properties. We are a full-service real estate team. We're in a few cities. But once a week at CC Realty Show, we come on. Generally, we have people that we will interview, we bring in so that they can share some pretty insightful information and good knowledge to help educate. So the market, kind of where we are today, and why would people even consider getting into this? I spent a lot of years prior to real estate. I spent a lot of years working with the Ontario government and about 80% of the municipalities. I learned a ton, and interestingly, I learned even more about our population, how we bring people in, immigration, just how things move. And when I started to pay more attention to how it affects on the real estate market, I was mind blowing. When I mean that is, it was based on some pretty core, accurate data that helps us understand, oh my gosh, it really is good to invest in real estate. We can kind of see the patterns and the trends of what's coming. So we can never, ever, ever predict, and that's not what we do. But boy, oh boy, can we ever interpret. So when I look at my, I've got 2 partners. I have a lady that I work with here in Hamilton, Halton. Her name is Cindy, and she's one of the best in the industry. As an investor, she knows her numbers. And just, to work with people like this, and they're helping clients, and then our clients are with us long term, it's just such a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And then we have Roy Cleves, Roy Cleves has been in the industry for a good number of years, published author now, The Accidental Real Estate Millionaire. So if you go to Amazon and just Google The Accidental Real Estate Millionaire, You'll get a #1 bestseller in Canada and in US. Roy, over time, built his net wealth. And it was when he was in his early 40s that he got started. So it wasn't like he just started overnight. But in the last 8 to 10 years, it just started to move up. And he's probably worth about 8 million. But it wasn't like that. About 15, 18 years ago, that's kind of when he started to get it started. So people that are watching, and for those that follow us, as we always say, like, don't just get your homework done. Reach out, ask questions. This market is very strong, and it's going to continue to do what it's doing, if you will. And the real estate market is either up or down or flat in terms of life cycles. But right now, we are seeing it very, very strong. Lots of times we'll get asked, when's the right time to buy real estate? When you can afford it. Because as long as you are renting, we can try to look at it a number of ways, but we're still paying somebody else. And we can sit and love our home, but once you are in a position, or if you make a decision that you want to go forward, the things start to show up. Just go forward, get your homework done. But on the investing side, because that's the other side of our business, for those that are going in and they want to get into real estate, they want to get into investing, whether they're doing it for the first time or they may own 4 or 5 properties and now they want to pick up another couple. Same scenario. There's a lot of growth going on, just different things that we look for. But when we get into investing, the #1 thing that we always, there's about 6 pieces of criteria that will emphasize that we want to follow. Do the numbers work? Do the numbers work? So as an example, if we look at something like a pre-construction, maybe that property is not going to be built for another 2 to 3 years. However, you want to buy it now. So historically, the way pre-construction we found typically works is when the developer makes the decision and they want to start selling, they will start generally under market value because the home's not built yet. Most our homes have all been pre-construction homes, so we've typically have found they've usually been about 25% under market value. By the time that it's ready, which could be, if it's a house, it could take longer. Sometimes people might have to wait a couple years, sometimes even up to 3 years. But once it's ready and you take occupancy, that is the time that you would secure the mortgage. When you purchase it, the developers are still looking, most of the time, they're looking for that letter that says you're pre-qualified. And some people may ask, well, how does that happen? And it's the banks or the mortgage brokers, whomever you're working with, they may qualify you at a higher rate, but this is what they look for. You do have to be able to have the cash to put out because they are typically looking for a deposit structure, and they want that deposit structure. It can be spread over a year, it could be spread over 2 years. Every developer is a little different, but it's still what you have to put out. If it's a condo, or if it has a condo component, it could be a condo town, it could be a condo low rise, condo high rise, they're a little different. You do, when they get ready to be, when they're built and they're moving everybody in, you do what you call a phantom close, which is where they have you, they wait till they move in about 80% of all of the purchasers. You don't get your mortgage yet. You do an occupancy close, so you're kind of taking on and maybe just paying the interest. And then depending on, once they've got everybody moved in, that's when the condo will come forward. They then do the forming of the board, etc. And that's generally when they'll advise everybody time to get the mortgage. And you're usually given a couple weeks. If it is a freehold, it's straightforward. You need to have the mortgage before you move in. But on the investing, there's all different kinds of investing that exists in real estate. And I remember one day I asked Mark, because Mark done, I think at one point Mark owned about 50, yes, 50, and it only took him around 10 years to acquire it. 50 properties. And it all started with one. And I think it was upwards about 10 years ago. And his story resonated with me because I wanted to know, Mark, how did you get into real estate investing? And the way he got into it was, just him and his wife one day made the decision. He was familiar with real estate. I think he'd been in the industry. He did flips. Never really got into the practicing side of it. But about 10, 11 years ago, they decided that they were going to purchase an investment property. And when he went to make the purchase, they did pre-construction. And as he was starting to ask questions, he wasn't getting the same answers back. So he found that there was inconsistency. Federal government said one thing, the provincial government said another thing. And the long and the short is Mark continued to do his fact-finding and homework and realized, holy smokes, there's an opportunity here. And that's what he did. He started to go forward. He figured it out. And now in his perspective, he would say, best if you're going to get into investing and you're looking at pre-construction, usually they'll say, stick with one kind because they can be all different. So pre-construction, typically you look for the smallest unit. The smallest unit. So he's kind of sliced and diced the numbers to figure it out. Other types of investing would be BRRRRs, where you're going to purchase the property, you're going to do the rental on the property, then you're going to turn around and you may, then there's more value in it. You're going to look to maybe refinance it and then purchase another property and you'll put a renter, put somebody in there. That is another way. That's a whole other conversation with respect to when people think of getting into real estate investing. Well, how do I get the tenant? What do I look for? And again, as much as, it can get exciting when you're in the industry and what we're doing, but the homework is so important. And if you're not working with an experienced realtor and you're thinking or even considering it, I emphasize just find one that you trust, you work well with, and work with them. If you're doing it on your own, it's not what we know that can hurt us. It's what we don't know that can hurt us. Sometimes I'll say it's like going into a courtroom without a lawyer. It's important. These are big decisions. I used to consider when I came into this industry, I spent a lot of years in the business corporate world, but when I came into this industry, it was like every homeowner is a chief financial officer and every buyer is like a chief financial officer. And yet I recognize some other things that in my opinion, I felt there's good value for it to be there. So do I love being in this industry? Absolutely yes. Do I love helping people? Absolutely yes. Do we are we running this sort of as independent realtors? No. It's a challenge for one person to get it all done. So we have some unique team behind us in what we do. But we are really here, folks, to help educate people. We're here for the long term. We're basically, we replicated what got started in Kitchener. We're growing it now in another city, and we're growing. And the beauty of this is we never quit. We're always here, and it's growing. It's just a privilege to be in this space, and it's a privilege to be able to help educate people on how they go about it, whether they're getting into an investing. They have a few places, and to have the right guidance, benchmark, bounce stuff off of us. And it isn't even so much about kind of what I may say, but as we facilitate, we're on once a week. We do run a real estate show, and it's on Thursdays. It's usually at 6 o'clock every Thursday, and we will bring in special guests, and those guests range from our own clients because we want them to speak about the experience, what it was like. We had a client on a few weeks ago. Oh my God, these are beautiful people. I remember when I first met with them and just love them to pieces. Because, when there's a lot of data that I have in my head, and I love to be able to, I'd like to know we're working with the truth, so we get the homework done, peel the onion back, and that is. And our team is the same. So my partner Cindy, same kind of thinking, if you will. And this couple, it was phenomenal to work with them and just help him from, well, this is what CC stands for: conception and completion, compassion and commitment. Started out as call cleaves, and we grew and grew, and now it's evolved. So it really is about compassion and commitment and conception to completion. So it was literally like that when we worked with them, from the beginning all the way through to see them purchase their very first investment property on their own, and a cash flow. And they just followed the numbers, and they had guidance. And the guidance, it was Cindy that worked with them. And as Cindy was working with them, there was just things that they might not have been aware of that she pointed out and helped kind of steer them until they finally did get across the finish line. The market, folks, that for those that may not be aware, we're in the Burlington, Hamilton area. And this market is reflecting the same in the Kitchener area. It's reflecting the same in the Toronto area. We're seeing it. It is strong. It's strong. So when a property goes up for sale, you know, so long as it's priced correct, if you will, because there's a rule of thumb that we have learned a little bit. If a home sits on the market, and that sits on the market for gets very little showings, and let's say it's on that market, you know, the industry will say it's 97% generally due to price. It may not be priced accurately. So there's a lot of homework that goes behind how do you price out a home, how do you get the most amount for the home, etc. And the same thing on the buyer side. You don't want to be overpaying. Homework should be done. You don't want to be overpaying for a property. So the market that we're dealing with right now, folks, it's very strong. Very strong. There's just not enough homes on the market for the amount of buyers that are trying to get in. And we're seeing the multiple. We're seeing more than one offer. There might be 5 people that put an offer in on a property at the same time. People might be holding back offers. So you have that. But I want people to be aware that even though it's like that, it's just adjusting how we work to that. So as realtors, and we're working with investors, we're working with whether they're buying for themselves, they're buying second properties, third properties, we have to be able to work in any environment. So if it's a market like this where we're getting multiple offers, it's very, very competitive, we do a lot of our homework in advance. So we know when we're going in, what to do, and how to position ourselves that, again, our buyers are not overspending. They know at the top of their budgets how they feel. So it's just getting the homework done and really helping prepare them. So do we get people into homes in this market? Absolutely do. Absolutely do. But spent a lot of years, and it just depends on the space and where we come from. So I did not want to spend too much time today, folks, kind of hammering that side, but I really wanted to educate on what we are seeing in this market. So a couple of things that I'm going to share, and I said there's about 6 things that we look for. I had learned many years ago, before I got into real estate, that Canada is very much sought after. It's one of the most sought after countries to live in, and it's one of the most economical, cheapest to live in for the services that you receive. So I spent a number of years with, as I said, the province, with the municipalities, and some people used to ask me, what did you do? Well, teach them how to behave, teach them how to run their business. So everything technology, even before the internet came, everything process oriented. So we call them business process improvement, business analysis, project management, program management, things that you need to run business, if you will, systems. Everybody needs to know, and no matter what we do, it's a system, it's a process. I find a lot of us kind of walk around and we have these playbooks in our head, but we don't document. And so that's another conversation another day. But for the purpose of the investing side, all of this, if you will, Canada is an incredible country to live in. And absolutely, yes, we have relied on, it is like we're a country of mosaic. So there are a plethora of opportunities for people when they come, and a plethora of opportunities for investing. So many people have interest in doing this. They have interest in getting into investing. When we have immigration, which Canada is a country of immigration. I am an immigrant. My husband's an immigrant. We rely on that. We're a country that actually seeks out talent. And this was a former background that I came from, but we look for talent. We source talent. We bring talent in. We're very much of a services-oriented country. And as we bring talent in, people, looking for options, where they live. Do they have to rent? Can they buy? In 2020, there were 400,000 people projected to move in to Canada. The next 20 years, year over year over year over year, the Ontario government has projected in approximately 180. When we look at that, plus we are at kind of an all-time low with the interest rates, and the Bank of Canada at the federal level, they can change the interest rate 8 times a year. So the other thing that we always ask as soon as we connect with somebody that's considering purchasing is, are they qualified? Have they pre-qualified? There's many options. That, there's the 5 banks, the 5 chartered banks, or there's mortgage brokers. There's lots of options for them. And get them to shop for you, get them to work for you, if you will, but get the process started. Because at the very least, when you find out what you're qualified for, then at least you know your buying power. It's, once you know that, we work together. So we are being full service. We do have mortgage brokers that we work with. We work with the banks. If people need a good mortgage broker, we can refer them to someone. We're not the type of organization that gets into, referral fees and kick. No, we don't get paid anything. I just want to know that if I'm going to work with a mortgage broker, they got to go above and beyond for their clients. And they need to bring experience. If they just got their license, that's wonderful. But I am looking for full service. People that have done it, relationships there. These are one of the biggest decisions that people make. So on investing side, we watch these things. We watch immigration. The other thing that I have to emphasize are we have schools. Some of the best schools that we have are in Ontario and BC. That's another contributing factor. Then we look at things like economy. So for those that might not be aware, before COVID hit, our economy was strong, very strong. And even when COVID hit, on real estate it slowed down for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and it just started to pick back up. There is, now I'm a bit of a digital person, so since 1999 going into year 2000, the moment that we used to call it token ring, and there was a company called Citrix way back in the day, we could work from home. I remember I started then working from home and loved every ounce of it, because then I could create my schedule around my day. I had children and my children were young, and I could do that. So the industry typically has had 2 decades to mature. So when COVID hit, folks, there were a lot of people that we now had this ability to transition and we could work from home. That notion's been around for a long time. And it's been around in terms of, why are we driving? There's climate. We're in an era now where we're really waking up. And we want to be able to have a planet to live on. And how do we contribute? My brain does tend to go into different paths. And one of the things that really intrigues me is, if we're in this industry in real estate investing, what a notion to be able to develop properties that are very eco-based, and they have a very low footprint, if you will, of carbon footprint, and they have a very low footprint of cost around energy, but the energy is more efficient than maybe what we're accustomed to. There's so many different ways that you can go in the path of real estate investing. So what I emphasize, and what I really wanted to just get across to everybody today, is it's homework, it's criteria. So there's about 6 different things that we look for. And keep following us, folks. We will do more around this, and we will be getting ready to launch a series so that we're actually running, we can educate. And maybe the one session is where we're breaking it down on what that first step is, and then the second, and then the third. The question I remember Mark answered one day when I asked, there's different types of real estate investing. In addition to Roy, used to deliver a seminar, and it's a seminar that's to this day very popular, and it is around how to become, like a real estate millionaire investor. And we teach this, and I've taught it before. And they would typically say, there's 4 different types of investments you can get into, and of course there's lots of different ones. But you have a single family home, you have a duplex where you can have 2 families live in the home. Bungalows are really good for that. Then you may have a a townhome, that type, and then you might have a multi-residential, or you could have a triplex, and then you get a multi-residential. But then there's other kinds of real estate investing too. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of different ways to get into the industry. The one message I want to leave today with everyone watching is, as they say, success leaves clues. So follow those that have done it. If you're going to be thinking of it, work with people that are doing and having success. You can mitigate your risk. You don't want to have to make a lot of mistakes if you don't have to. And feel comfortable. Work with the realtors that they're investors. They know they've done it themselves. It is okay to ask questions. When people are considering to work with someone, whether they're going to think of selling their home, and selling their home, that's a different, that even more so. I'm going to look at selling your home. Well, when you sell a home, is it a great option for an investor? Is there potential for dual income? There's different ways. We want to be able to market it to all audiences. We don't want to leave a stone unturned. But important to do your homework, important to start fact finding, it's important to reach out. This industry is evolving. This industry is becoming more complex. In the software dev world, we call them components and moving parts. But important that we know what to look for. Important that if you're investing, think about what your goals are. There's some things that we would say people want to get in. Oh, I want to buy an investment property. I'm looking for this, and this. So the first question I normally would ask them is, have you done this before? And then from there, I would ask, like where they're at, what their experience has been, their budget, their time frame, and if they've done it before, how many times? Their experience. It's important to not go in blind. It's important to go in having a good, solid comfort level of where you go to get the homework done, sounding boards, so on and so forth. So I'm going to leave it with this. For all that are watching, I want you to go to Amazon. Look up The Accidental Real Estate Millionaire. Read Roy's story. Support him. Read it. Because this gentleman, no different than you, no different than my partner Cindy, no different than me, no different than, the 8 billion other people we have on this planet. He's someone that a number of years ago never thought he could and turned it all around. And here's me. He's a very dear friend of mine. He's like one of my brothers. And I watched him. I watched him and his wife. And, I had interest, and I'd always, oh my gosh, Roy's there. So success leaves clues, folks. Get your homework done. There's different ways of going into investing. I hate, it's not like it used to be years and years and years ago. Real estate is not 10 years ago, 30 years ago. It's today. It is point in time. There is a saying, and I put a disclaimer out there, like this is just what we hear. It's a saying. You can look it up online, but they will say a good 90% of the people that have wealth, they make it in real estate. So read stories, just learn. And if you have all your homework done, you're with the people that have done it before, you're mitigating your risk, you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years' time, as they say. So on that note, just have an awesome Thursday. Keep following us. CC Realty Show, Michelle Carty. We're with Burlington, Hamilton, Cindy Zupanovic. Any inquiries there? And if you're looking for us up in Kitchener, you can look up CC Realty Group, Roy Cleves, or Mila. We'll see you guys next week. Have an awesome week. Bye for now.